Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me. My name is Lauren. I will be guiding you through a slow flow vinyasa practice where we are going to focus on our outer hips. Oftentimes in yoga, when we do hip openers, we're referring to the inner part of the hip and the inner part of the thigh. So in this practice, we're going to focus on the outer part of the hip and the outer part of the glutes. So it might be some new sensations, but everything we do should be comfortable. Remember that first and foremost. Okay, we are going to start on our backs. I'm going to pad something under my head. That is optional. You don't have to do that. But we are going to start on our backs in a comfortable position. For you, that might mean having your legs long and extended along the length of the mat. For me, that means bending my knees, having my feet flat on the ground, feet wide, knees knock in, and then arms about a foot away from the body. Let the palms face up. And once you find a comfortable position, just really let your body indulge in that comfortable position. Let yourself find it and really settle into it. The back side of your body feel heavy. Notice how supported you feel. Resting your body on the mat, on the floor, and on the earth. You are supported by all of these layers, all of these things keeping you up. So you can relax into them a little bit more. You can rely on your mat and the floor and the earth a little bit more by relaxing your body, softening into the earth. Now, as you soften and relax and release your body, turn your attention to your breath. Notice your breath. Notice if you're breathing through your nose or your mouth. Notice if you're breathing into your chest or your belly. Notice how smooth and consistent your breath is. And you're welcome to stay here, observing and watching your breath. Or we'll begin to manipulate the breath, lengthening the breath, mostly the exhalation. It's said that a longer exhalation has a calming effect on the body and the mind. And so I'll walk you through a breathing technique where we will inhale to a count of 4 and exhale to a count of 6, making the exhalation a little longer than the inhalation. But you are welcome to return back to your natural breath at any moment. So to begin, exhale completely. Inhale to a count of 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Last one. Inhale, 4, 3, 2, 1. Exhale, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Return back to your natural breath. Notice how you feel. Keeping your attention inward. If it feels right for you, you're welcome to silently set an intention for your practice. Ask yourself what brought you to your mat. Think of a positive word or phrase. Give yourself a few moments to silently and slowly repeat it, to allow it to settle in your heart. Now slowly deepen your breath. Take really deep, full, long breaths and then create some movement throughout your body. Moving through fingers and toes, arms and legs. Take a few moments to move in any way that feels good. Maybe a full body stretch, maybe hug your knees in. Give yourself some movements and some time to move around. And then we'll all meet with our knees bent, feet flat on the ground. I like feet and knees together, but you absolutely could do this feet and knees hip distance apart. Arms will come out in opposite directions, palms facing up. Let the arms just really relax. We're going to focus on the legs here. Let your legs fall to the right, and then back through to the center, back to the left. And allow your legs to just rock and sway, right to left, side to side. We're going to stay here for several moments. So just because we are focusing on the outer parts of the hips, glutes, and thighs, that does not mean other spaces in the body will not get any movement or attention. We certainly always will move the spine. In almost every yoga class, you can be sure that you'll be moving your spine in a variety of directions. In my class, I always make a point to move the spine in all of its possible directions. So we're twisting here, and you should feel a comfortable massage through your lower back. Again, just warming up the spine. This should be comfortable. If you're ever at home and your lower back is feeling kind of funny, kind of tweaky, a little wonky, any of the above, and you're not sure what is a safe movement to do, this is usually where I start. I usually do this and legs up the wall if my back is ever feeling kind of funny. So it's a good movement to kind of keep in your back pocket. It might not feel like much, but it's comfortable, gentle, but it is effective in warming up your back. Okay, let's do this one more time each side. And then slowly return back to the center. Okay, so back to a neutral spine. Now walk your feet out to mat width distance apart. So feet are now wide. but your feet still look like the number 11, toes pointing forward. Okay. You're going to keep your right leg still for just a moment. Right leg will stay still. The left leg, roll to the inside edge of the foot, towards the big toe side of the foot. The bottom of your left foot will come off the ground, pinky toe sort of up towards the sky. It's almost like you're trying to get the inner thigh toward the mat. It won't touch, won't even really come that close, but you should feel something happening in your hip. And then return the left leg back to the center. Now the right leg, roll to the inner part of the foot, towards the big toe side, towards the arch. Bottom of the foot will come up off the ground. And then return and keep alternating right to left. So you're allowing your inner thigh to come down towards the floor. Again, it won't touch, it won't really even come that close. But you're rolling again to the inside edge of the foot. Bottom of the foot will lift up, pinky toe side will lift up. And you're going to feel this through the hips, more so through the inner part of the hip. But your inner and outer part of the hip, or the inside and the outside of the hip, have a relationship. And so if we're moving through one, we're inevitably going to move through the other. So allowing this space to move a little bit in a comfortable way. We'll stay for just a few more moments. If you're finding that you're not really feeling enough in the hips, make sure that as one leg is moving, the other one stays still. So we're not moving both legs. We already did that. So one leg moves, the other one stays still. It does not sway or rock or move with it. That's going to take away from the movement. We want to isolate one hip at a time. Okay, do this one more time on each side. And then we'll return back to the center. You can bring your feet about hip distance apart. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe out, hug your knees into your chest. You can rock from side to side or trace circles with your knees, whatever you need for another moment. Okay. Now from here, you're going to come up to a seat, so you can rock through to the center or roll to the side. But then really from a seat, we're just going to make our way into tabletop. So you can come right into tabletop. We will be kneeling for a while, so you might want a pad under your knees if your knees are sensitive, or if you're right on a hardwood floor or on a harder surface. And if you've got blocks, which you don't need, but if you've got them, bring them to the top two corners of your mat. All right, so let's meet in tabletop on all fours, on our hands and knees. Hands are under shoulders, spread the fingers wide. Knees are under hips. Doesn't matter to me if you have the tops of your feet down or your toes are hooked under, whatever feels best in your body. For me, this actually feels like a really good stretch to the bottoms of my feet. Somehow, even though I've been only in my apartment for the last 2 weeks and have been barefoot this whole time, my feet have been feeling like they've been getting really tight. So I want to stretch the bottoms of my feet. Okay, we're going to focus on the spine. So really push the hands down. Make sure that you're not shrugging in your shoulders. But inhale, let your belly drop towards the floor. Lift your chest, lift your heart, look forward. Exhale, tuck the tailbone. Draw the ribs to the sky, chin to the chest, look at your belly button. Inhale as you drop the belly. Drop the ribs, but lift your chest, lift your heart, look forward. Exhale, tuck the tailbone, ribs up, chin to the chest, look at the belly button. Do this a few more times at the pace of your breath. Moving through spinal flexion and extension, a forward bend and a back bend, warming up through the whole length of the spine. Do this one more time of each. Okay, and then return back to neutral, back to the center. So thinking about from up overhead, your spine is a straight line. You're looking to the space between your thumbs down on your mat. Keep your neck in neutral here. Inhale. Exhale, look over your right shoulder. Look towards your right hip. Imagine from up over your head, your spine looks like the letter C. And then return back to the center. Look to the space between your thumbs. And then look over the left shoulder. Now from up overhead, your spine looks like a backward C. Inhale to the center. Exhale into the side stretch. Inhale to the center. Exhale, take the side stretch. We'll do this a few more times on each side. Now we're warming up the right and the left side of the torso. We're moving through a lateral movement here in the spine. So every time you come back to the center, lengthen the spine. Do this one more time each side. Think about drawing the ribs up a little bit too. We tend to let the ribs sort of hang. We don't want to be in a cow pose and do this. We want a neutral spine. Okay, coming back to the center. All right, now from here, if you've got something under your knees, it's probably going to start to get in the way, so I would remove it. Come back into tabletop. From tabletop, hands under shoulders, spread your fingers, look to the space between your thumbs. Oftentimes in the next pose we're about to come into, people drop their head and look at their feet. Look to the space between your thumbs. It's going to help keep your neck in neutral. All right, and then lengthen your legs back, come into a plank position, like the top part of a push-up. Now, anytime we're here, you're welcome to drop to your knees. Just make sure that the fronts of your hips are long. So we don't want a crease in the hips. Your hips should not be a right angle. That's tabletop. You're here. The torso all the way through the knees, if not the heels, is a long straight line. Take a deep breath in. Exhale, downward facing dog. Now from downward facing dog, you might walk your feet forward just an inch or two, but no more than that. Then you'll lose the integrity of the length in the spine, which really is your priority and the main intention in this pose. It's keeping a long, neutral spine. Now you might pedal out the heels. Let your hips sway, shake your head yes or no. Take another breath. Okay, and then one more time. Inhale, shift forward into plank pose, like the top part of a push-up. So shoulders are stacked over elbows. Elbows are over wrists. You might be on your knees. You might be on your toes, but you are lengthening your body, looking down at the space between your thumbs, staying strong. Inhale, exhale, downward facing dog. Take a moment. Okay, now deeply bend the knees. Inhale, look forward. Exhale, travel forward. Walk, step, hop all the way forward into forward fold Uttanasana. Now your feet are hip distance apart. Your toes point forward. Your feet look like the number 11. You are letting your upper body just surrender to gravity. That might mean you touch the floor. It might not mean that. That's okay. That's not the goal. That's not the point. You let your upper body just hang heavy as you feel a comfortable stretch through the whole backside of your body. So allow gravity to just pull you down. You're not necessarily reaching or stretching, trying to reach for the floor. You just feel heavy. Take a breath. Now firmly push your heels into the floor. Inhale, lift up halfway. We're going to hold it here for a few moments. So lengthen your spine. Reach the crown of your head forward, your tailbone back. Push your heels into the floor. Really activate your hamstrings, the backs of the thighs. Keep pushing heels down, reaching crown of the head forward. Inhale, rise up. Circle the arms. Reach your fingertips to the sky. Maybe add a bit of a back bend. And then slowly bring your hands through to your heart. Take a deep breath. Okay. All right, let's move through some sun salutations. Inhale, circle the arms up. Exhale, hinge of the hips, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, step the right foot back. And then drop that right knee down to the ground. Okay, we'll be here for just a few breaths. If you want to fold your mat under to pad your knee, you're welcome to do that. Okay, but really push your left heel down into the floor and inhale, rise, just bringing the hands onto the top of the left thigh. Okay, let's focus on opening the right hip flexor for just a moment. So instead of thinking about deepening the stretch by slamming everything forward, because this usually is not a very stable and effective stretch, I want you to stand up tall and tuck your tailbone. So instead of letting your ribs poke forward and your seat back, bring everything back, draw your ribs in, draw the base of your pubic bone forward. So you're scooping your low belly, tipping your pelvis, like you're trying to point your belly button up towards the ceiling. You should feel a stretch in your hip flexor. Take a breath. Inhale, exhale, bring the hands down, step back, downward facing dog. Okay, from downward facing dog, spread your fingers as wide as they'll go. Inhale, shift forward, plank pose. Now you can always drop to your knees, but you're pushing your hands down, lifting your chest, lengthening your spine, tucking your tailbone a little bit. Now inhale, shift forward, exhale, slowly lower all the way down onto your belly. Bring your arms alongside your body, palms face in. Push down with the tops of the feet, push down with the hips, and inhale, lift the head, neck, shoulders, arms, and hands off the ground. Lengthen through the crown of your head. Look down at your mat to create length in the back of the neck, no wrinkles in the back of the neck. Work through your lower and mid back by pushing your hips down and lifting your chest up. Take a breath. Inhale, exhale, slowly lower, downward facing dog. Reach the sit bones to the sky. Take a breath. Now, slowly pick up the right foot. Inhale, reach the right heel back. Exhale, draw your right knee forward towards your belly. Quietly place the foot in between your hands. If you have to pull or push the foot, that's okay. But just don't slam it on the floor. You shouldn't hear this sort of thud when your foot comes to the floor. Now drop the back knee. You might pad the knee under. And then bring your hands to the top of the right thigh and rise up through your upper body. Now, I'm not so concerned with you coming forward. Yes, that is one way to deepen the stretch, but usually isn't quite as effective or safe. So think instead about what is your spine and your tailbone doing. Tuck your tailbone like you're drawing your belly button, like you're trying to point it towards the ceiling, shine it up towards the ceiling. You're drawing your ribs back, base of the pubic bone forward. You should feel a stretch in the front of your left hip flexor. Take a breath. Inhale, exhale, bring the hands down, step forward, forward fold, Uttanasana. Push the heels firmly into the floor. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, fold. Push the heels down. Inhale, rise. We're going to do that again. Exhale, hinge at the hips, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, step the left foot back, all the way back. Now you can drop the back knee like we did the first round or keep it lifted. Either way, push your right heel down. Bring your hands to the top of your right thigh and inhale, rise. Now let's just keep the hands low. We could come to a more traditional crescent lunge, but let's keep the hands low for this round. So the left heel is off the ground. Bend the left knee a little so you can tuck the tailbone. So for a moment, try it the other way. Lengthen the left leg. Really try to straighten the left leg. Now you might feel something in your hip flexor. I feel something in my hip flexor, but I can't tuck my tailbone because the hip flexor is tight. It's pulling the pelvis forward. Like now your belly button wants to shine down towards the floor. And it's not quite as deep or as comfortable of a stretch because I can feel this in my lower back, which is not where we want to feel it. So bend the left knee, tuck the tailbone, lengthen your lower back, and still get that stretch. Take a breath. Inhale, exhale, bring the hands down, step back, downward facing dog. Take a moment. Okay, spread your fingers. Inhale, shift forward, plank pose. Stay upright for a moment. So you can come to your knees, but I want you to stay in this plank position. Now, crown of the head reaches forward. No wrinkles in the back of your neck because you're looking down at the space between your thumbs. You're pushing your hands into the floor. Stay strong in the upper body. Inhale, shift forward. Exhale, slowly lower. Keep the elbows in tight. Tops of the feet down on the ground. Arms alongside the body. Palms face in. Inhale, lift. Reach and rise. It's like you're pulling your heart forward and reaching your fingertips back. Broaden through your chest and shoulders and lengthen through the back of the neck. No wrinkles in the back of the neck. Take a breath. Inhale, lower the hands. Exhale, downward facing dog. Okay. Now pick up the left foot. Inhale, reach the left heel back. Exhale, draw the left knee forward in towards the chest and then quietly place the foot down. Now you're welcome to drop that right knee down onto the floor or keep it lifted. But push your left heel down. Bring your hands to the top of your left thigh and lift your torso. Again, we're going to keep the arms low for this round. Okay. So for a moment again, try it with the right leg straight. Really reach your heel back like it's reaching for the wall behind you. You'll feel something in your right hip flexor and maybe the quad. But notice how your lower back feels. Like for me on this side, my lower back actually feels much better than it did on the first side, and that's possible. But I do know that if I bend the back knee, it'll feel even better. So really lift the right heel, bend the right knee, tuck the tailbone. And now my lower back feels nice and long and lengthened, but I still get that stretch. So when you're trying to get a stretch or work something, it shouldn't be at the expense of another space. One more breath here. Inhale, exhale, fold forward, step forward into forward fold, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, fold. Push the heels down, inhale, rise, fingertips to the sky. We'll come into standing poses. Exhale, hinge of the hips, fold forward, Uttanasana. Inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, step the right foot back. Okay, so stepping that right foot back and then pivot the right foot so that the right heel is firmly down on the ground. Now we're coming to a warrior one in a moment. So your right foot should be hooked in at about a 45-degree angle. Your right toes should be pointing towards sort of the top right corner of your mat, not over to the side. Now, this is a cue that often teachers do not give, but the more I practice and the more I teach, the more I feel strongly about it. So something to think about. I'll give this cue to you, take it or leave it. Drop your head and look at your heels. Oftentimes we're taught that this pose is considered a heel-to-heel alignment pose. That means that each of your heels, it's like they're on a tightrope, that each heel is in the same plane, something like this, if you can see. Now that works if you are really petite, really narrow, mostly that cue was meant for teenage and very young boys. So if you have the figure of a teenage boy, then maybe this will work for you. I don't though. So I take my heels so they're about hip distance apart. Each heel is in its own lane of traffic, like railroad tracks. They're parallel to each other, but they're not on a tightrope. Okay. So see how it feels. You can take it or leave it. But bend the left knee, push your left heel down into the ground, inhale, rise, warrior one. Now, in warrior one, our hope is that the right heel pushes down and back, but the right hip can come forward. That's really tough when your heels are on a tightrope because the heel is really drawing back and the hip really can't come forward. So hip distance in the heels might be more comfortable for you. It might not, and that's okay. You've got to think about customizing these poses to your body. Everything I'm saying is suggestions, so keep that in mind. Okay, so the right heel draws down and back, pinky toe down and back, but the right hip forward, left knee bends, left heel into the floor, and you reach the fingertips up towards the ceiling, but let the shoulders relax. Okay, now continue to maintain length in the spine. We're not looking for a back bend. Draw the ribs in, tuck the tailbone, create a wrinkle in the front of your shirt. And even though you reach up with the fingertips, let the shoulders relax. Take a deep breath, warrior one, Virabhadrasana one. Okay, now bring your hands to your hips. Push your left heel firmly into the ground to straighten the left leg. Now really square the hips. Your belly button should be pointing straight forward in front of you, not over to the front right corner of the room, straight forward. Okay, now push your heels into the ground. Inhale, lengthen up through the crown of the head, stand up tall. Exhale, fold forward. Fold at your pelvis, like your pelvis is rolling over the left femur. Shorten your left hip flexor. There should be a really deep crease here where your left thigh meets your torso. Now you can keep the hands at the hips. You can take Yoga Mudra, interlace the fingers, reach the knuckles to the sky. If you've got blocks or if your hands easily come onto the floor, hands can come there. Now, but the left leg stays fairly straight. Almost all the time do people bend the left knee because now they're not feeling the stretch in the hamstring. And if your hamstrings are tight, straightening the leg here gets pretty deep. And so people think, oh, well, I don't really like that, so I'll bend the knee instead. But now you're not getting any stretch in the hamstring, so the leg might not be a perfectly straight line. It might be bent a little, but can you straighten it a little bit more and keep the ease in the pose? You should not be holding your breath. You should not be making a face. You should not be wincing. You should not be thinking, ow. I certainly feel a deep stretch in the back of my left thigh and mostly through the knee. That's okay. That's very much okay. But I can breathe. I can talk. I can hold a conversation. That's sort of another test. I was running for a long time, and that was sort of the test, the talk test. Could you hold a conversation while you're doing something like this? And the answer should be yes. Okay. So keeping this left leg as straight as you can, as comfortably you can, so you feel that stretch in the back of the left thigh, getting into the hamstrings. Now keep drawing the left hip back, right hip forward. Take a breath, pyramid pose, Parsvottanasana. Now deeply bend the left knee. So now the left knee is very deeply bent. Push the left heel into the floor. Inhale, return back to warrior one. Fingertips to the sky, but shoulders relaxed. Okay. Now from here, bring your hands to your hips again. Now we're going to come to a balanced pose. So find a spot on the floor, something to look at that won't move. Steady your visual field, your focal point, so that you can keep your body hopefully a little more still. Okay, now let the right heel lift up off the ground and start to shift your weight forward into the left foot. Maybe the tip of your right big toe stays on the ground, or maybe it just hovers over the ground. That's okay. But we're looking for some version of warrior three. Your left leg might stay bent. It might lengthen, your call. But the right leg is long. You push your heel back, crown of the head forward. Maybe you even reach your fingertips forward. Stay in warrior three for one more breath. And we're coming to standing split, so now fold forward. Bring the hands down onto something. Might be fingertips, might be palms flat. Left knee might bend a little here, but reach your right foot up towards the ceiling. Now, it doesn't matter to me if you open your hips, if your belly button points towards the right or towards the floor. Explore how one feels different from the other, because they're both stretching different spaces. But let your upper body just hang like you're drawing your nose towards your left knee. Take a breath. And then deeply bend the left knee. Let the right foot come down towards the left. Come into forward fold. Feet hip distance. Both feet flat on the floor. Let your upper body just hang. Take a breath. Notice how your two legs feel different. Notice really where they feel different. Okay. Now inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, step the left foot back all the way back. Okay. Now, stepping that left foot back, pivot the left foot, heel comes down onto the ground. Drop your head, look at your feet. Are your heels on a tightrope? That's okay. Most of the teachers that you've probably practiced with teach this pose that way. That's sort of the classical way to teach this pose. And there's nothing wrong with that. I did that for years. But if you maybe have a body type other than that of a teenage boy, you might want to widen your feet, just so that your heels are about hip distance, not mat distance, not that wide, just a few inches. Okay, deeply bend the right knee, push the right heel down, inhale, rise, warrior one. Okay, so again, your heels are more than welcome to be on that tightrope. Again, most teachers teach that way, and that is sort of the classical traditional way to practice that pose. So there's nothing wrong with it, but it tends to feel, those of us who have wider hips, it makes us feel a little restricted. You're asking your stance to be much narrower than it probably naturally is. Just like in Tadasana, we stand with our feet hip distance. But in some classical versions, feet are together. So you do what feels best for you. But you draw your right knee forward, the right heel down, left heel down, but left hip forward. You reach your fingertips up towards the ceiling, but relax your shoulders. You stay strong here in your right quads. The top of your right thigh should be feeling some work, as the back leg feels probably some stretches in several places. Take a breath, one more. Okay. Now bring your hands to your hips. Push your right heel firmly into the ground to straighten the right leg. Now this right leg ideally will stay a straight line throughout this pose. It might bend a little, but it should not be bent a lot. There really shouldn't be wrinkles in the back of your right knee. Okay, so keep the right leg straight. Draw the right hip back, left hip forward. Your belly button points forward, not over to the left. You're not going to get the stretch in the space we want. So hips forward, belly button forward. Inhale, stand up tall. Exhale, fold. Create a lot of creases at your right hip flexor. Where your right thigh meets your torso, there should be lots of wrinkles there. Now hands can stay at the hips, hands can come onto the blocks or the floor, or maybe you interlace your fingers, you reach your knuckles to the sky, take Yoga Mudra, but come into some version of pyramid pose, Parsvottanasana. Now continue drawing your right hip back, your left hip forward. Square the hips. I want you to feel a comfortable stretch in the back of your right leg. Maybe you'll feel it by your seat, maybe the thigh, maybe the knee. I feel a lot of it actually behind my knee. But you are able to breathe. You would be able to have a conversation. You are not wincing, not making a face. It's a deep stretch. I certainly feel a lot happening in my body, but I can sit with it. I can breathe into it. It feels productive. It feels good. Take one more breath, pyramid pose, Parsvottanasana. Okay. Now, deeply bend the right knee. Push the right heel down. Inhale, rise, warrior one. Virabhadrasana one. Okay. Now, one more time, bring your hands to your hips. We're coming to a balanced pose. Look at a spot on the floor, something that won't move. Find your drishti. Pick your left heel up and shift your weight forward into the right heel. Now, the left big toe might stay on the ground. It might hover off the ground. It might lift all the way up. Let's go back. Okay. But now we want your belly button pointing down at your right big toe, not over to the left side of the room. Belly button shines down at the floor. Left heel reaches back, crown of the head forward, maybe fingertips forward. Take a breath, warrior three. Inhale, exhale, standing splits. Bring your hands onto something. Left foot up towards the sky, but torso down, like you're reaching your nose towards your right knee. Now you might open your hips, you might not. Do what feels best for you. Maybe try them each out, but standing splits. Feel the length in the back of your right leg as the left leg floats up. Take a breath. And we'll meet in forward fold. So bend the right knee, let the left foot touch down, both feet flat on the floor, hip distance apart. Take a breath. Okay. Now from forward fold, inhale, lift up halfway. Exhale, step back to downward facing dog. I'll give you 3 to 5 breaths here if you'd like to take a vinyasa, if you'd like to take a child's pose. Take a few moments to be wherever you need to be. And then we'll return back to downward facing dog. Okay. From down dog, let's meet in tabletop. You can stay where you're at. I'm going to turn around just so I'm still facing you when we do what we're about to do, but let's meet in tabletop. Again, we're going to be kneeling for a little bit. If you want to pad under your knees, you're welcome to. All right. So from tabletop, with your right shin, pivot your right shin out over to the right. So your knee is still under your hip, your thigh didn't move, but the right shin is sort of at a diagonal across your mat. Your right toes are pointing towards the back right corner of the room or of your mat. Now lengthen your left leg long, almost like the left leg is in a plank position, but then roll to the inside edge of the foot. So the arch of the foot is down on the ground, your left toes point to the left, your right toes sort of point back and to the right. Okay. Right hand comes under the right shoulder. Inhale. Exhale, reach your left fingertips up towards the ceiling. Okay. We're coming to a variation of gate or a side plank. So sort of a hodgepodge of these two poses. But you're going to push the top of your right foot down, your toenails even down into the ground. To keep yourself lifted, push the right hand down. Again, to keep yourself lifted, the right side of the body should be working at least a little bit. Left fingertips to the sky, or if that's uncomfortable, hand at the hips, all right? Now, we're going to focus on working your outer hip and outer glute here. So, keeping the left leg long, let it float up off the floor, away from the floor. Now, flex your foot so you're curling your toes back towards your face instead of away from you. Flex the foot. Make sure the back of the leg is long. Okay. Now, you might not be feeling much yet, but your glute med, the outer part of the hip, should be feeling some work. And just in case it's not, let's add some movement. So keep the leg long. Inhale, let the lower the foot so it hovers over the ground. Exhale, bring it back up. Inhale, let it lower, hover over the floor. Exhale, bring it back up. Let's do 3 more. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more. Inhale. Exhale. 1 more. Inhale. Exhale, hold it at the top. Take a deep breath. Keep pushing the right side down, lifting the left side up. Inhale. Exhale, return back to tabletop. And obviously we'll do the same thing on the second side. All right, so keeping your left knee where it's at and the thigh still, you're just gonna pivot. So the shin makes a diagonal line across your mat. Top of the foot is resting on the ground, toenails on the ground. Left toes are pointing to the back left corner of the room. Lengthen the right leg long behind you. Roll to the inside edge of the foot. Right toes point over to the right. Left hand pushes down, inhale, exhale, sweep right fingertips to the sky. Or hand at the hip, that's fine. We're not really focused on the right arm. It's really the one space that can do whatever it wants because everything else is going to be doing the work. So left hand pushes down, lift up and out of your shoulder and your armpit. Left side should be feeling at least a little bit of work. It's keeping you upright. Now, keeping the right leg long, allow it to float up off the ground. Okay, push through the heel. The heel drives away from you towards the back of your mat or towards what was the back of the room for you for a while. You're curling your toes towards your face. Now, right glute med working hard. And just to make sure it's really working hard, let's move it. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. Inhale, lower. Exhale, lift. 3 more. Inhale. Exhale. 2 more. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Hold it at the top, but take a deep breath. Feel that engagement in the side. Inhale. Exhale. Return to tabletop. Let your hips roll out your wrists, whatever you need to do. And then in a moment, we'll come to a seat. So again, that muscle that we were working was your glute medius. It doesn't get worked very often. Well, that's not true. I guess it gets worked anytime you do a balance pose. But in real life, how often are you standing on one foot, you know? So in an average day, it doesn't get worked very well. In yoga classes, it gets worked pretty well, but it still is generally an underused muscle. So we're gonna stretch it now and massage it. So I'm gonna sit sort of at a diagonal so I can be sure that you can see me, but you can just face me. All right, so lengthen your legs along your mat. Now, we're gonna keep the, I'm gonna mirror you. So we're gonna keep the right leg long, bend the left knee. Bending the left knee, bringing the ankle to the top of the thigh. You might be familiar with figure 4, pigeon, eye of the needle, threading the needle, that sort of thing, sort of that shape. You could see you're sort of making this upside down figure 4. It's often called figure 4. So from here, we're gonna start to get into the glute like you would feel in figure 4 and pigeon. You're gonna feel a stretch there, but then we're gonna build onto it. Throughout this, make sure you are sitting up tall. I often like to think as if I'm leaning up against a wall and I can't slouch. The crown of your head, the back of your head and the length of your spine is leaning up against a wall, or like you're wearing a corset, like you're wearing a back brace. Don't slouch. That's really counterproductive for this pose. Okay, so you're sitting up tall, your right leg is long, you grab onto your left leg. I like to grab the knee and the arch of the foot to lift it up. Now, it might not come up very high. That's okay. If you're familiar with pigeon, you maybe have heard teachers say, I often say this in my class, that your shin In an ideal world, in truly a perfect world, which this is not, your shin would be parallel to the top edge of your mat. They would make like an equal sign. That almost never happens. I would consider my hips pretty open, and that doesn't happen for me. But we're going for that same sort of feeling here. Instead of having the shin at a diagonal, can you lift the heel up so your shin is parallel to the floor? It makes an equal sign with the floor. Now, the more you do that, the more you're gonna wanna peel back. So sit up tall. Okay, now, really keeping that length in the spine, can you draw your shin in towards your leg? This is really when you're gonna wanna slouch. But we wanna draw the leg towards the belly and not let the belly creep away. We wanna make them come closer together. Now, if they come close together, you could, instead of holding onto your leg, you can wrap your arm around your leg. So this is often called cradle the baby, and so it's like you are cradling a baby. Now, you're welcome to just keep holding onto your leg. That's perfectly fine, makes no difference. All right, now from here, sit up tall, relax your shoulders, feel a stretch through your glute like you would in figure 4, pigeon, things like that. But now we're gonna add on to it. Shift the weight of your body into your right sit bone. Let the left one hover up off the ground and truly cradle the baby. Whether you're holding onto the leg with the hands or the arms, cradle the baby. Open and close, open and close. Notice how this feels in your hip. Should feel comfortable, it should feel good. You're feeling sort of the feeling of pigeon or figure 4, but at the same time, you're also getting into opening the hips like you would in happy baby or butterfly pose. Okay, do this 1 or 2 more times. And then close the hip and then drop the seat to the floor. Now we're gonna keep going with this side. Right arm will stay wherever it is. Left hand comes behind you like it's reaching sort of for the back left corner of your mat. And now you're gonna lean into this fleshy pocket. So you've created this hip crease here, and all this sort of extra flesh and meat and all sorts of things are right here. And you're gonna roll onto that side of your hip. The space that was working just a moment ago when we were in that version of gait, I found the spot. That does kind of make me lose my concentration for a moment, sorry. I found a knot. So that space when we were doing those leg lifts and you're feeling that work through the glute medius, that space I said that works when you balance. Now we want to stretch that space. And so you can roll around and just sort of see how it feels. But if you find a knot like I did right away, I would recommend you just stay there. Just put some pressure on it. It takes at least 30 seconds for your muscles and your brain to communicate back and forth to figure out what's going on. And for the muscle to release the knot. It takes a while. So especially with something like a knot, you've got to give it at least 30 seconds, otherwise the knot won't break up. Okay. So again, you could be rolling around, that's perfectly fine. Sometimes I don't find a knot, and so I just kind of move around and massage everything, but if you find one, just stay with it. Let's say for about 3 more breaths, like that. Okay, and then with the left hand, try to bring the left hand under the left shoulder, push the left hand down and inhale, rise. Okay, we're gonna do 1 more pose on this side. You're gonna bring your left foot to the outside of the right thigh. Okay, now, oftentimes when we take this pose, either the base of the big toe or the sit bone want to lift. They do this sort of teeter-totter, one goes down but one comes up. They both have to be down. Now we're gonna take a twist, but I'm gonna be specific about what I want in the twist. Yes, we're gonna twist the spine, but I want you to continue to open the space. So your right arm is gonna wrap around your thigh and you're gonna hug it in. That's what I really want you to focus on. Step 1, think about hugging it in towards your belly. Step 2, if possible, think about drawing the leg across your body. So your left leg over to the right, like it's trying to cross over. Okay. Left hand comes behind you. Inhale, sit up tall. Exhale, take a twist over to the left. So you're turning your heart to the left, but you're drawing your leg to the right. Okay, so you should feel even more of a stretch here in your outer hip, outer glute, outer thigh. Now, normally we do something different with the arm because the intention is really entirely about the spine, but I want the spine to sort of be secondary here. I want you to think about really drawing the leg in and over. So if you're familiar with poses like Happy Baby and Butterfly, those are poses I mentioned that open the inside of the hip because we draw the knees and the feet away from each other. We want to do the opposite. We really want to try to cross the legs. Can you get your left knee over to the right? It's sort of the opposite of Butterfly or Happy Baby, poses like that. Okay, take one more breath. Okay, and then slowly return back to the center, releasing the arm, releasing the leg, and return that left leg out long. Maybe let it rock and roll. Notice how your two sides feel very different. Okay, same thing, second side. I'm just going to turn so I'm mostly still visible. Okay, so left leg is going to stay long, right knee is going to bend, ankle to the top of the thigh. Now, you absolutely could hold on here. We'll all start there. So holding on to the leg, knee, and the foot. I like to grab the arch of the foot to make sure I'm flexing my foot to protect the knee. But then you sit up tall, you lift the leg. In an ideal world, in a truly perfect world where all your joints were very mobile and your muscles were very loose and fluid, your shin would be parallel to the floor and you'd be able to draw it in. But that's not reality for 99% of us. Even myself, I struggle with this some days, and so maybe it's kind of lower, maybe it's farther out. That's okay. Remember to customize the practice to you, so it should feel good. Maybe that means taking this deeper stretch, like this side is much tighter for me. This is a lot of sensation, but again, I'm able to talk, breathe, and my focus is here. But I'm not thinking, oh my gosh, my thigh, oh my hip, I can think about what comes next, and I can notice, oh, I have to flex my left foot, I have to sit up tall, I have to relax my shoulders. My focus is not so concentrated here. I can distribute it. Okay, now whether you're holding on with your hands or with your arms, shift your weight into your left sitting bone. Cradle the baby. Let the right one hover off the ground and open and close, open and close. So again, now notice you're drawing the knees away from each other. It's like, again, butterfly pose or Happy Baby or a wide leg forward fold. Anything where we draw the knees away from each other, we're going to open the inner thighs. We're making those spaces longer and drawing them away from each other. The joints are opening. But in a moment, we're going to do the opposite. Okay, do this one or two more times. Okay, and then bring it back, drop it down. Now, we're gonna keep the left arm where it's at. Right arm will come over and back to the right. I like to eventually, I usually drop to my elbow, but you don't have to do that. So you might just roll around. If you're not finding like one sort of hot spot, you might just roll around and that's fine. Like on this side, I don't really feel any, oh, no, I found it. So you might just keep rolling around and that's okay. Just massage that space. We just want to break up any knots, break up any tension. We've been working that space, but to really have a healthy muscle, joint, body, fascia, whatever, you need the balance between work and rest, softness and strength. And so we can't just be strengthening the muscles all the time. So we need to soften and massage and release. And so that's what we're going for. So stay for a few more breaths, a few more moments. Now this is similar if you've ever gotten like a deep tissue massage. Sometimes that does get uncomfortable, and that's okay if you're just feeling the need to take some deep breaths, and then it should pass in a few moments, in a few breaths. So sometimes even for myself when I do this, I do sort of make a face, I do kind of wince, but then after about 2 breaths, it's over. That's all right. Okay, take about 2 more breaths. Okay. Now, as best as you can, right hand push down into the ground to lift yourself back up. Now we're going to come into twist. So the right leg is going to come over to the outside, of the left leg. So base of the right big toe down, right sit bone down. I went from not mirroring you to mirroring you, so this is kind of throwing me off. Okay, but we'll get there. So you're gonna push both sides down, you're gonna sit up tall, left arm wraps around the right thigh. Remember, we wanna hug it in, and then if possible, think about drawing it in and over, almost like your right kneecap is reaching for your left armpit. You're drawing it in, but also over a little bit, if that helps. Okay, right hand comes behind you, inhale, sit up tall. Exhale, take the twist over to the right. Turn your heart over to the right, but draw your knee over into your body and over to the left. Again, like it's reaching for your left armpit. Okay. Whew, this side is so much tighter on me. Wow, I am learning. That's what you do. You just learn about your body. Because this is interesting because this is sort of, not to talk about me, but this is the space that I've injured, but I injured it on the other side. So the other side was much more open, much more loose, I think because I tend to give it a lot of attention because I know that it's injured. Where this side, I guess, gets neglected. Oh my goodness, this side is tight. Okay, so you're sitting up tall, you're turning your heart over to the right, you're hugging that leg in, again, like it's crossing the body, like it's reaching for its opposite armpit. I want you to feel that stretch. Oof, I feel it. Let's stay for 3 more breaths. Okay, and then slowly unwind from the upper body all the way down to the lower body. You can return that leg. Ooh, ooh, ooh. And then maybe move them out, roll them around. Okay. All right, we are going to keep stretching this space, but we are going to do that on our backs. Again, I'm going to bring something under the back of my head just to support it. If you don't have anything, that's all right, but make your way down onto your back. Okay, now, from down onto your back, excuse me, cross your right ankle over your left thigh. So let's actually come to figure 4. I was referencing it early, and if you aren't familiar with this pose, we are going to do it. So right ankle to the top of the left thigh, that's a good way to cue it, ankle to the thigh, but really it should be shin on the thigh. We don't want to put pressure on the ankle by pushing it onto the thigh. So think bone to bone, not joint to joint or joint to bone. Okay, softly flex your right foot so you're protecting your right knee. Inhale. Exhale, hug your left thigh in towards your belly. So bring your hands to the back of your left thigh or to your left shin. This doesn't really feel so good on my knee, but your call, your body, whatever you like. Okay, but really hug the left thigh in. Let the shoulders feel heavy on the ground, back of the head heavy on the ground. So if you find that you're sort of lifting everything up, use either a strap or a towel or something that allows you to keep the back of your head and your shoulders down on the floor. Okay. So you're hugging this left thigh in. Notice what you feel on the right outer hip. Take another breath here. Now we're going to come to another glute stretch that's going to feel very different. So from here, release your hands. Cross your right leg all the way over your left like you would if you were sitting in a chair. Thighs are together. There's no space between your thighs. So close the gap. Now hug the thighs in. Grab onto either shins, ankles, or feet. If you grab onto the feet, softly flex the feet. Just a little bit of engagement. And again, let the back of the head and the shoulders feel heavy on the ground. Now notice where you feel a stretch. So notice that before, your knees had some space between them. Not a whole lot, but about a shin's length, right? Where here the knees are much closer together, stacked, if not crossed. So the stretch will be different. Again, the difference between something like a happy baby and a butterfly versus all these other poses we've been doing where we're crossing the knees. We're drawing the knees closer together, inner thighs together, so we're opening more through the outer parts of the hips instead of the insides. Now let yourself relax in this stretch. It has the potential to be deep, but try to soften and take 3 breaths here. Now from here, keep your legs as they are. Release your arms. Arms come out in opposite directions, palms up. Left foot comes back onto the ground, but thighs are still together. Thighs are still stacked. We're still on the same side. Right leg is crossed over left. Now scoot your hips over to the right 2 to 3 inches. So they might even be sort of like on the edge of your mat. And then let your legs fall all the way over to the left. Okay. So in this twist, we want your heart facing the ceiling. So that means you've got to make sure that your left shoulder comes down. We don't want the left shoulder lifted and your heart facing over to the left because 1, you're not twisting, and 2, this is a lot in the shoulder. It's too much in the shoulder, I should say. So right shoulder comes down, heart faces the ceiling, but your belly button points to the left. Now you've got your legs crossed. This is sometimes called twisted roots. So your legs are all twisted up. So you'll feel something through the outer part of the hip again. If it's too much, if your hip is saying, you know what, I'm sick of this, you can uncross the legs. That's perfectly fine. And you might turn at your neck to look over your right shoulder. But allow yourself to soften in this twist for 3 more breaths. If your head is turned, slowly return your head to the center. Slowly return your legs back to the center. Uncross the legs, recenter the hips. Bring everything back to neutral, back to symmetry, and take a deep breath. Keep the right leg as it is. Left ankle comes to the top of the right thigh. And again, that's a good cue. Ankle to the top of the thigh shows you what that means. Shin to the top of the thigh isn't quite as zingy, but that's really what we want. Softly flex the left foot, protect the left knee. You can stay here or inhale. Exhale, hug the right thigh in towards your belly. Interlace the fingers. Maybe interlace them the way you don't normally interlace them. Either by the thigh or the shin. Doesn't really matter. I just never like the way this feels on my knee to put the pressure on it. So doesn't matter though. Whatever you like. But let the shoulders relax. The head feel heavy. Again, if your upper body is lifted up off the ground, either put something under your head or put something behind the backs of your thighs so you can grab it easier so that your torso can still relax. Okay. Now notice the stretch you're feeling. This is comparable to pigeon. This is again figure 4. Take about 2 breaths here. Okay. Now release your hands. Let your right foot come back into the ground. Cross the left leg all the way over. There's no more space, no more of a gap between your thighs. Thighs are together. And you hug them back in, grab onto shins, ankles, or feet. If you grab onto feet, flex the feet. Shoulders and the back of the head still heavy on the ground. As you now feel a stretch through more in a concentrated area. So this stretch might make you want to wince or make a face. You might have to sort of back off it, whether that means letting the thighs come away from your belly or letting the feet sort of move in different directions, but it should be comfortable. It has the potential to be pretty intense or pretty sharp and concentrated at the beginning. But another tell, and I think I mentioned this already, is that it should dissipate after a few breaths. Not entirely. It doesn't go from 100 to 0, but it should sort of lessen and get more comfortable and easier to maintain the longer you're here. The intensity should not grow. It should lessen. Take about 2 more breaths here. Now keeping the legs crossed, just let the right foot come back down onto the ground, release the hands, let them come out in opposite directions. My arms, if I let them come directly out to the right, this is because of my own shoulder issue, my arms start to fall asleep. If that happens to you, just bring them down sort of at a diagonal. That's what I always end up doing. Okay. Left leg is still crossed over right. Scoot your hips over to the left, 2 to 3 inches. Let the legs fall to the right all the way. Now you don't have to keep your thighs crossed and your legs crossed like this. If the outer hip is like, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore, it doesn't have to do it anymore. So it can uncross and simply stack. But we do need to make sure that the left shoulder is down. We don't want it lifted up. So draw the left shoulder down, heart faces the ceiling, belly button points to the right. You might turn at your neck to look over your left shoulder. But this should be a comfortable stretch, something that feels really good and productive, something certainly that does not make you wince or make a face. Just notice what you're feeling, breathing into those spaces. Take 3 more breaths here. If your head is turned, slowly return it. And slowly return your legs back to the center. Uncross the legs, recenter the hips, bring everything to neutral. Notice how you feel. Take a deep breath in. As you breathe out, hug the knees into the chest. You might rock side to side or point and flex your feet. Maybe roll out the ankles. And I mentioned this pose several times through the practice. If you weren't familiar with it, here it is. If you want to come to Happy Baby, you're welcome to. The bottoms of your feet face the ceiling. You draw your thighs down towards the floor and away from each other. So you're going to feel this in the inner part of the hip, place we didn't really work very much, so it might feel good to do this. Hands either come to the backs of the thighs, the calves, the ankles, or maybe grab the outside edges of the feet. Traditionally, first 2 fingers wrap around the big toe. Doesn't matter though. But you draw the knees down and almost away from each other, but keeping the shin a vertical line, heel over knee. Okay, and maybe you rock from side to side. There's a lot of yoga poses that I often wonder why they are called the pose that they are. Not this one. This is again called Happy Baby. Okay. All right. Now returning back to the center and then allow your legs to lengthen. We're going to set up in Shavasana. You're going to set up in Shavasana. I'm going to come up to a seat. I don't trust myself to lay on my back with my eyes closed and just hope that I know when 5 minutes has passed. I need to stay pretty alert. Okay, but you are going to come onto your back. That might mean with your legs extended. That might mean with your knees bent. It might mean with props. It might mean adding layers. You know, for me, I've got a fan on overhead, and if I were to be in Shavasana, I'd probably grab a sweatshirt or turn the fan off or something. But somewhere where you can stay very comfortable and you can stay fairly still. And then you let yourself relax with your body long and flat along your mat. Your eyelids feel heavy, so they softly close. You let your body soften. Every muscle, every joint, let it relax. Imagine that there is a wave of relaxation that washes over you. This wave of relaxation allows you to soften and release everywhere, starting with your toes and your feet and ankles. You soften your shins, calves, and knees. You relax your thighs, hips, and glutes. Release tension from your lower back, mid-back, and upper back. Release the shoulders, down the arms, through the forearms, wrists, hands, and fingers. This wave of relaxation allows you to soften your chest, your throat, neck, and jaw. Relax your lips and tongue, your cheeks and nose, eyes, eyebrows, forehead. Relax your scalp. Relax your brain. Create softness and comfortable stillness on the outside as well as on the inside. Just relax. deepen your breath. Create soft and small movements throughout the body. Let your head rock side to side. Run your thumbs over the rest of your fingers as you wiggle your toes. Roll your wrists and ankles. Move your arms and legs. You can reach your arms overhead, stretching as if you just woke up from a long nap. Take a deep breath in. And as you breathe out, hug your knees into your chest. Slowly roll over onto either side, resting your ear on your arm to support your head and neck. Keeping your eyes closed and using the strength of both arms, push down into the ground and come up to a comfortable seat. Take a moment here to thank yourself for making it to your mat today, and maybe reflect on your intention. Loka samasta sukhino bhavantu. May all beings everywhere be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my life contribute in some way to the happiness and freedom for all. Now slowly join your hands together in front of your heart in Anjali Mudra. To seal our practice, we'll chant the sound of Om one time. Om is the oldest and most sacred mantra. It's said to be the first sound that ever existed. All sounds in the universe came from the sound of Om. So therefore it is in everything and unites all of us. Again, we'll chant the sound of Om one time. Let's start with a deep and clearing breath. Inhale for Om. The light or the good in me acknowledges, respects, and bows to the light or the good in you. Namaste. Thank you. Thank you for joining me. Have a wonderful day, and I hope to see you in real life really soon. Thank you. Bye.